Buy-to-let rate hikes, Jim. So this morning we're gonna try and give our expert opinion on if you're a landlord facing higher mortgage costs and things. Then, but I would like to stress we're not mortgage advisors, but we're going to talk through some of that this morning and hopefully give people a wee bit pointers on how to best navigate the situation that they're in at the moment, because a lot of buy-to-let landlords will be feeling the same, especially if you're a landlord, you're on a fixed rate mortgage, it's nearing its end of its initial term, you'll be all too aware of the coming increase in your monthly repayments.
I thought we were on a lumberjack show this morning. I put my shirt on especially for that. As a Monty Python joke. Anyway, buy-to-let rate hikes. I mean, this is it. Our landlords are facing higher costs every single day, effectively.
Yeah.
Andy came onto one of the landlord forums, and he said to me, he was saying, "Does anybody know what it roughly costs to fit a kitchen anymore?" And he came up with something like £2,000, and I went, I think again.
Triple that.
I probably triple that, maybe double. Maybe you get away with double, but if you're going to
Depends
finish
on
it
the size of
properly,
the kitchen.
you're probably tripling it now, and it's astronomical the amount of money that landlords have to pay out now, and the costs that they have to pay out. And I don't think nobody gives a shit, do they? Because it's landlords. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's what they do every single time. Nobody cares about landlords because they're private landlords and they're demonized and they're vilified by the government and the politicians for votes. That's effectively what they're done. It's what it's done for, to get votes. But what they're doing is they're marginalizing a group of people in our society. But Scotland, for example, classic example, if I told you that there's 260 people in Scotland that are demonized and vilified, sometimes spat on, assaulted and name called, you'd be affronted. You'd be up in arms. You'd be going, what's the Scottish government doing about this? Absolutely nothing, because it's them that's doing it to us. And it's called private landlords, and then everybody changes. Some people change their opinion and go, it's only private landlords, they're greedy. See that sort of impression people get. People have no idea, the public have no idea, because they're spoon-fed from the media that this is the story and the rhetoric that private landlords are, and letting agents as well. On a smaller scale, you get it for estate agents, don't you?
Definitely.
But people vilify the stage, and it's like, what's that all about? It's like we're contracted to do a job. Okay, somebody's got to do that job, so we're going to do the job as effectively, as efficiently as we can. That's what we're contracted for.
For a long time.
Who's it hurting? No one.
Yeah, for a long time, and before I started in the industry and was younger, it was a thing that was kind of commonly known that estate agents had a bad reputation, and likewise, like you say, letting agents as well. And I know that all too well, because it's what I do, and it's ridiculous, and it is driven by media and people's the view that's a kind of pushed on them, and it's not true. But anyway,
my life is so shitty, I'm going to kick someone else. That's what most people say. You don't realize you're saying it, but that's really effective what you're saying. I'm going to pick on someone else deliberately because it's not going great for me. So who we got? Easy target, private landlord, letting agent, estate agent. It's easy target all the time. So we have to have a disconnect from that, really, at that point. It doesn't seem like it, because I started off on a bit of an emotional level. But it is what it is, and we are where we are. But this is all about, what we're talking about today is about landlords and how they're having these massive hikes in the costs that they're doing to run buy-to-let. But there's still pressure from public saying that this is ridiculous. I can't afford to rent a house. You see it on the television all the time. They're putting adverts up now, to run their series. It's on their catch-up. For the fact that every single time you've got that, basically thrust into your brain from a box which actually influences people. And don't say it doesn't influence people, because it does. Because then why would everybody advertise on it if that's the case then?
Why would they do it? Yeah.
Because it influences people. The one-eyed monster sitting in the corner of the room, that's effectively, it will suck the brain right out of your head. That's effectively what television is.
Yeah. I know.
So if
But
you're a
yeah,
landlord fixed with these fixed rate costs and they're nearing the end of the initial term, like you said, Richard, you're only too aware of the coming increase in monthly repayments.
yeah,
That has to get passed on somehow. And guess what? It gets passed on to the tenant,
yeah,
because the tenant doesn't take any responsibility for the mortgage, and effectively they had the house to themselves. They take the responsibility for the mortgage, so they've got the beauty of doing that. But remember, the rent is the least you'll ever pay for having a property. The mortgage is the rent is the most you'll ever pay for having a property. The mortgage is the least you'll ever pay for having a property,
yeah,
because the mortgage you'll always have to pay costs over and above that, which is the repairs and improvements bill, for example. And increases in mortgage costs as well, it will come. You've got the responsibility of doing that if you hold the mortgage. If you don't and you just rent, you've got no responsibility for that. You've got no responsibility for increasing insurance costs. You've got no responsibility for increasing mortgage costs. You've got no responsibility for increasing repairs and improvement costs. Hey, happy days.
you've got communal and factoring fees, and there's lots of things.
No responsibility for that. And then you've got no responsibility for maintenance outside. You've got no responsibility as well for the things like, every day, all the day-to-day costs that come along with it, come along with having a property.
Yeah.
And then people go, aye, but you could get more money out of the property. No, you can't. As a homeowner, you don't make any more money. As a homeowner, all you do is you secure your place on the property ladder, but you also run the risk of actually taking the hit if property values go down. Credit crunch.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people would have rather rented in the credit crunch than actually take the hit for the price of the property going down, and they would have loved to have sold just before the credit crunch. But we don't hear these sort of things, do we?
Yeah. No, you're right. So let's take a look back. Let's just look back a wee bit about mortgage rates and things. If you look back, maybe like October 2021, and indeed like back in like 2018 as well, 2 and 5 year buy-to-let rates were averaging about 3%.
Yeah.
But they've now switched to today's rate, which is more than 6% in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And now that's a substantial jump, and I know a lot of people are having to face that just now because they're coming to the end of their fixed term.
So just give a quick analogy about that then.
Yeah.
If you've got £100,000 mortgage, then you've got another £3,000 a year, and that effectively equates to another £250 a month. Now, if your rent is only £500, that mortgage increases half of the rent.
Yeah.
How is that possible? It's like the landlord's not making much in the first place. How is it possible for them to absorb another £250 on a £500 rent? They have to sell.
And even with
they have to sell or they have to put the rent up. You've got no other choice. So the person that's driving this market is inflation, and it's the government with the Bank of England and the Bank of England increasing base rates, which increases mortgage rates. And the lack of social housing is causing this crisis because we don't have enough properties to supply to people. Because guess what? The vilified and demonized of our market means that quite a few of us are actually leaving and thinking, forget it. Forget it. I can't be bothered with the hassle anymore. I'll just take the money I've got from my pension, I'll put it in my pension, or I'll put it in the bank.
And they have brought in the option, obviously, you could do 3% rent increases now after initial 12 months, or 6% if you're in a position where you're, but I mean, does it really benefit when you've got that kind of hike on your mortgage?
No, not really. No, look, now see how people can get confused here when you says it's gone up 3% to 6% for the mortgage.
If you could prove that.
The 3% is 3% at £100,000 because that's the mortgage. The 3% on the rent is the 3% at £500.
Yeah.
So it may sound like you're getting your money back, but it's not. So 3% of £500 is effectively £15 a month. So another £15 a month is £180 a year to cover £3,000 increase in costs, and that's just the mortgage. We're out of business.
Yeah.
Hooray! I hear Patrick Harvey shout, the landlords are out of business.
To add to the housing crisis.
Exit side left. I'll do that straight away, because the reality is you're going to have to find the houses for people to live in, because we won't have them anymore. Oh, but they can buy their house, you see. Well, they're not. They can't, because a lot of people actually can't. It's not they can't afford to buy the house. They don't have the circumstances to buy the house. In other words, they're not making enough money to buy a house.
They're not in a financial position to do that.
And whose fault's that? It's not the private landlord. It's no other obligation to turn around to someone and say, oh, we'll reduce our rent because you don't make as much money as the last tenant. No, we've still got all our costs to cover. And that's what you're effectively paying for. And you're paying for a small profit, a surplus, just in case for us to make for running the business, for running the property, for overseeing everything. And a letting agent as well sometimes to do that. And a return on capital you've got to pay for as well. After all, if you're using somebody's money, then you have to pay for that. Oh, yeah. Do you? Well, you do with a bank, and everybody perfectly accepts it. Amazing, eh? Amazing how people can get really mixed up in what the true story is that goes on behind buy-to-let and how it works. And you're absolutely right, Richard. This is about the 6%, a substantial jump in 3% is £3,000. Your rent's only like another 180 quid a year if you get 3% from the government. How are you going to fill the void of 2,850 quid extra that you've got to now find? That's crazy. I mean, your rent is gone. That's it. You sell up. It's time to sell. Time to sell for most landlords is now, because it's only going to get worse before it gets better. This is where I talked about yesterday about weathering the storm. So if anybody saw my wee blog yesterday, I was out running and I looked at all the trees blowing down. It sometimes gives me inspiration and everything that's going around about us. And I say it's like most businesses need to gear themselves up, and most buy-to-let landlords, every buy-to-let landlord should be gearing themselves up to weather a storm. And that means conserving cash just in case, rainy day stuff, not actually saying I'm going to run out and buy another property because I can. It's like, because then you've eaten up all your reserves into another property. Oh, I'll make more money. But your costs are going to be higher soon, and your rent's going to be a bit lower soon, or it might be restricted and going up. And then all the other things like occupancy rate, because imagine if you have a flood of properties coming onto the market because people then maybe can't sell their house, so they decide to rent, accidental landlords. Then you have voids, your occupancy rate will go down. You can't afford to do that. Occupancy rate goes down by 1 month. You've lost 550 quid. Most landlords out there will be going, wait a minute, that's my profit. Yeah. You're right.
And that's where risk analysis comes in.
Yeah, you're sailing right close to the edge, definitely. A lot of landlords are sailing close to the edge. They need to weather a storm. They need to be geared properly. They need to make sure their business is running properly. And this is what we're going to talk about today, about things like that. But I'll be putting my own spin on stuff while we're going through this. But it's really important that landlords and letting agents especially, because a lot of agents don't have an idea what they're doing. They're great at managing a property, but they don't understand the dynamics of creating that wealth. And that's where investment specialists like us come into play, because we've done it before.
Yeah. And it's not just, I mean, anybody could be a letting agent nowadays, really. And it's not just about that. It's about having that knowledge and about the whole, how it all works and how everything ties up. And joined up thinking, which is something that we could see the Scottish Government rolls out that isn't really there.
I know there's no joined up thinking. Think about this, and the Sewing Hub has just said this on TikTok. Actually, there's 20,000 people in West Lothian waiting on waiting on a house, right? 20,000 people, and yet the Scottish Government saying, yeah, okay, we could take more people from abroad. It's like we would love to take more people from abroad. Where's the houses? Where's the houses? Political point scoring. This is all this is about. It's other things as well, like, you know, the forcing, you know, Keir Starmer to make announcements on stuff by his party and stuff. And I thought, thank God I'm known politics. I tell you, I've always said that I'll never ever be a politician. I'll be a great lobbyist and point out the obvious, but I never want to be a politician for that reason. Because you're fighting against people that have no idea, academics that have no idea what they're talking about, because they've probably never run a business in their life and they've never done anything in their life except a career politician's job. In other words, I've studied politics at university. I'm not going to pick out a certain university. I was about to say it, but I've studied politics at some highbrow university. So that entitles me to be able to tell people what to do and how to run a country. No, it doesn't. I would say to that, the world is full of educated idiots, and we know some.
Yeah, that's true. But these hikes that we talk about and the mortgage hikes and things, they've caused a lot of landlords to sell up, and we've seen it. And there's a lot of people that might be watching today or watching on the reruns that might be thinking of doing the same. However, I think before pulling the plug on your investment, you really need to think of some options and explore different ways of keeping your buy-to-let viable. And things that we've rolled out as well, Jim. I mean, renovating and reletting your property, thus increasing the rent, using falling house prices to expand your portfolio, then creating debt reduction, and I mean, really consider the consequences of selling up. And people do it sometimes on a whim and then think, I shouldn't have done that. Remember a few years back, Jim, you offloaded a few.
I'll stick
I
my hand up for that.
benefited from that. I benefited from that, but you did regret getting
I'll tell you though, I'll be honest, Richard, there's, I never regret doing it because I made a really good healthy profit in the capital gain, which I was able to reinvest back in other areas. But I did take a moment of madness where I thought I'm just selling the whole lot. And then I thought to myself, it's like, and I maybe got 10 sold or maybe more actually.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, what the hell are you doing? It's like, what other asset class makes, this long-term income and generates this long-term wealth accumulation? Warren Buffett would argue this principle because he's not a property person. He's a nuts and bolts. And just like he looks for insurances and banks, and these are always places that will make money. And shops like Walmart, these are all places that will make money every single time because they're repeat purchase goods or services, which is effectively what we do. People use it's a cash-based business. Imagine how many people out there running their business right now would love to be in a cash-based business where you're actually not giving credit, you're actually giving somebody and they pay you cash every single month for it. It's like there is a bit of credit control sometimes when some people don't, but it's on the whole of it, we're a cash-based business. And then as well, letting agents as well, we get paid when the landlord gets paid, and we're cash-based business as well. There's no we'll give you 90 days credit or anything like that. It's now. So it's a great business to be in on the medium to long term, but that's certainly not a get rich quick profit entity. That's not what buy-to-let's all about. And these, what I call furus, the fake gurus, go about and say that and tell people we've got millions of pounds of property and all the rest of it. And you kind of look at their accounts and you think, you've no got a pot to piss in. Because I just checked somebody the other day who was in the newspapers about having millions and tens of millions of pounds of property. And I looked at their accounts and I think, you've only got £1 million. It's like, unless you've done this in the last year and added 9 million to your portfolio, there's something wrong with these numbers, and they're deceiving, they're deceptive. And this is all about selling courses.
Definitely.
I'm happy to call people out. I'll not call them by the name, but you know who you are. You're probably watching and listening to this right now.
But yeah, Jim, you're right. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a long-term financial security. That's what a lot of people are. And if part of the reason or the main reason that you are a landlord is your future financial security for you and your family and for your future generations, you'll find plenty that we're going to talk about today that's really relevant and helping you make the best decisions for your portfolio, rather than it just shows, Jim, somebody that's done it for so many years like yourself and been successful. Anybody could have that moment of madness and think, oh, it's the time, and sell up their portfolio. They might even do the whole thing and live to regret it.
I think you live to regret it because you realise then when you go back into something, it costs a lot more. I'll tell you a classic example recently. Where is my bit of paper here? I was doing for someone. Here it is. Okay. I went to see them yesterday, actually, and it was over in the Ely area. So they're existing serviced accommodation landlord. And I was actually talking them through their numbers, and they were thinking about, should we renovate or should we buy? This is a classic example about what we're going to talk about in detail in a minute. But should we rent or should we sell or should we buy? Or should we renovate? And they were going, well, we could get a bigger house and it'll save us all the bother of paying, effectively £170,000 on the extension, which is just basically pushing the back of the house out a bit, creating another room for a dining room, making the kitchen a wee bit bigger, and putting a wonderful balcony on the top, which has a glass balustrade on that. 170 grand. That's a lot of money. And you could immediately think to yourself, that's not worth it. That is not worth it. But then I explored the opportunity for them, and I says, "What do you want to do with this money, and where are you going to go next?" "Oh, well, we'll just buy another one." I went, "Oh, whoa, right there. As soon as you say buy another one, I go, cha-ching, stamp duty, land and building transaction tax, lawyer's cost, entry exit fees, estate agent costs, everything like that." And I equated to the fact that if they did that, if they sold and bought, then they would be selling. It would cost them roundabout to sell £110,000 and buy. Yeah,
That's quite a lot.
they had no idea. It's 110,000 to sell their existing property and buy another one at 750,000. Just because they wanted something bigger. And I said, then if that's the case, and it's £110,000 to do that, your 170 is really equivalent to 60 grand.
Yeah.
So effectively, by staying where you are and have no hassle, it's really only costing you 60 grand to extend, because the 110 would have been spent if you went and bought another one, which was bigger. And the 170 you're going to spend will probably go into the value of the property. And I says you're also going to have the fact that even when you stay there now, though, you've got to think about this as well. If you stay where you are right now, then you're going to have the disruption. So you're going to lose your income. So you'll probably be a year's disruption, because they said the contractor will take 6 months. I went, no, a year. It's going to be a year. It's not going to be 6 months. Don't kid yourself, because they go and do jobs for other people to keep them happy, so they've got a good customer client base. That's usually what happens with contractors. Just get used to it. It's the way of the world. So you can't expect them to do anything different. So if you're going to lose that income because they're getting 25 grand a year net out of this, then 25 grand's the hit for them in terms of that. So the 25 grand gets added on to 60 grand. So it's really 85,000. So the net effect is 85,000 of actually selling or doing anything else, because it's the twofold on each one. So it's going to cost them 85,000 really to stay where they are. That's the true cost. That's why I became an accountant. That's why I understand opportunity cost. That's why I understand forecasting. That's why I understand everything else. And this is what people don't realize. So I've effectively walked in the door and told them this, right? And this is what they need to know. I've saved them the cost of £110,000. And do you think some people actually then go, I'm going to sell my house with that guy because he's cheaper? Sorry?
Is this what prompted
you? Just use my knowledge, expertise, and everything to go and do this, and then you say the other guy's cheaper, and they've not saved you £110,000. People would. I usually get to the end of a conversation with most people and say, "Holy shit! I pay more for my financial advisor and for consultation once a year than I did for you in the last 5 minutes, and you did this for free."
Yeah.
Knowledge and expertise. That's what it's all about. These are the people you need to get around about if you're wanting to really make serious money in anything. You need to get around specialists. You need to get around people that have done it, have got a track record in doing it, and understand the dynamics of doing it, and actually clearly explain it like I've done right now.
Yeah.
Not just look at my fancy cars. Look at my look at my big house. Look at my wonderful family all sitting in towel robes on the bed and with a nice, beautiful white background. That's what you want to run away from. Because that's not what you maybe want that, but you're not going to get it listening to them, because all they're wanting to do is bleed you dry. Anyway, that's another story. Let's move on. But I thought I'd give an example of that. So I've still got to go back to them. I've just got to check with the surveyor about the value. But I know I'm right anyway, so there's no point in this. So when I go back to them finally, that's what I'm going to tell them. And they're going to go, wow, I can't believe that. But I tell you what, as I said before, some people actually then go, oh, I'm just going to look for the cheapest estate agent. It's like, wait a minute, this guy's told you everything that no one will ever tell you, saved you an absolute fortune, and you think another couple of £1,000 on the fees not worth it? You have no laugh.
Yeah. I take it that's what prompted your vlog yesterday. Disappointment about selling your house or not selling your house.
Yeah. At the back of that, because I felt that it was necessary. People don't realise when I walk in when we walk in the door, it's our advice and expertise that you're getting. So it's it's a bit galling to actually think I'm just going to use you for free, and then I'm going to use someone else that's cheap. Right? How many people out there would just do a job for free? Free. Yeah, that's it. Go to your job, say to your employer, it's okay. You're getting a week for free this week. Would you really do that? No, you wouldn't. No. So why would you do it to someone else?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. We've got a lot to get through. Renovate and relet.
Yeah, so that's the
strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, the first strategy we're going to look at is obviously renovating and reletting. And Jim, we've done this recently, and I know a lot of other people are. It worked out quite fine because a lot of what we done, it was time for them to be renovated anyway. So it was a good opportunity to, when tenancies come to an end, we would renovate and then relet and realign the price and things as well. And many rental homes never reach their full income potential because they don't attract the right tenants or higher earning tenants. So it's worth exploring whether you could boost your income by renovating the property and realigning that price point. So
even a quick refurbish, isn't it? So a quick
yeah, it
refurbish.
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be tens of thousands of
If you've got a
pounds.
big massive room like I had in one of my properties that went from one end to the other, and it was easy to subdivide it, just put a stud up and put a doorway to another bedroom off the back because it was windows at either side. So the living room was at the front. Instead of having a dining room at the back, I just basically put another bedroom because I had to maximise the rental value in that instance to make sure the return was right, to make sure I could reinvest in the property, to make sure the tenant was looked after correctly. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So it's all about, we'll briefly go over this. It's speaking to people like yourself, Richard, every single time.
Yeah. I think initially, if you're in that position, it's speak to your local letting agent, get them to give you the information about properties in the immediate area that have got higher rents and they're achieving that for homes that are similar to yours, and then you could look at what you need to do to get to that level.
Yeah.
And then
definitely,
also,
I think that, it's quickly just go over this, and we'll jump on to the next subject after this. It's things like the upgrades to kitchens, powerful showers, better quality flooring, new decor, improved insulation, increased number of bedrooms, as I said before, to add the rental value. Just get a quick budget for your work. If you've got you've got a couple of thousand, you've got 10,000, you need to work out exactly what it's going to cost you. And then you have to think about your rent return. So the improvement in rent I got from this £1,500 investment for putting a stud up and decorating at that time, because it was a long time ago, was effectively another 50 quid a month. So 50 quid a month is £600 a year. £600 a year divided by the 1,500 I laid out is effectively a 40% return on that money. So my money is effectively going to be paid back with just over 2 years, and the investment will be paid back in the extra rent I'll get. But that'll go on for life. And it also adds value to the property because I've now created another bedroom. So make a budget that works for you, including materials, contractor costs, and long term, and how much extra the mortgage might be in this instance to do that. But there is detailed information on here.
As much as you can.
We've got a buy-to-let, most stylish modern homes and all the rest of it. There's a blog there called Rental Upgrades in this post.
Rental
If you click on the main blog, you'll see in this section, renovate and relet, rental upgrades, and it is best, right? Increase the rent. This is one that defies me, Richard, because sometimes I come to you and you say, no, that's the rent for that now. And I'm like, what? Really?
Yeah,
wow. It's like, because I'm old school. I've, all these years ago, and I don't realise how much rents have actually gone up. But I think it's a lot to do with the amount of. I think it's a lot to do with the amount of the good deals I got at the time in terms of mortgages for lifetime trackers, and also the fact that I've not refinanced hugely and mortgaged myself up to the hill. Therefore, I've got a lot of margin there. So when the rents are actually, I would say, I wouldn't say affordable, because my rents are always affordable, even though they're right up at the top of where we're going to charge. And they're affordable compared to everybody else. The average for a rent, or my rent, is £400, just under £500 a month. And that's affordable to more or less most people. £6,000 a year. Average salary is £33,000 a year in Scotland. So this is average, remember, divided by the average salary, is 18% of income. 25 is where the Scottish government says 25 and above's unaffordable. It's like, okay, I'm way below that. So why? I'm just going to put a wee thing in there. So why should rent controls be imposed on me if that's the case?
Yeah.
Think about that. Anyway, rent increases. What can we say about this?
Yeah, I think despite rents kind of the soaring over the last couple of years, many landlords have frozen the rent for existing tenants to prioritise stability and things. Of course, this can be a smart business move, but not if it ruins your own finances. So you need to obviously have that right balance. And again, it's talking to your local agent about the current rental values for properties, ones that are similar to yours. And bear in mind that the laws of rent increases are different from England, Wales, and Scotland, obviously, and Northern Ireland. So we all have different. But I'll tell you, and it's really important to speak to a local agent who actually knows the area. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was at, it was Wednesday, I was at a property. and I went to look. Before I went, I was looking at some comparables and just to get an idea, because it was quite a unique build and things, right? Now, and for a comparison, there was a 3-bedroom in Glenrothes. Now, it was an alright area in Glenrothes, but a 3-bedroom house at a wee extension and things. Do you know that the rental value from this other agent was set at £995 per calendar month? And I just
Are they
thought,
renting in the East Nuke or something?
I thought that can't be right. And I just and then there was another one that was kind of it was off the ball as well. Now, I know areas like Glenrothes and Kirkcaldy and things, rents have went up quite considerably, but I just thought that was way out the park.
They're not that
And
much.
yeah, definitely for a 3-bedroom semi-detached house. No, so it does pay to have an agent that knows the area and knows the trends in the rental and what tenants are willing to pay as well. I mean, there's no point in sticking something on at £1,000 if nobody's going to pay it.
You get people saying, "Oh, I'll get a tenant at that level." Yeah, you'll absolutely get a tenant at that level, but the tenant will not stay that long, because they can give a 28 days notice and leave within 28 days and go to somewhere else that can find them more affordable. So you're left with a void again. So if you're left with a void, it could be another month or 2 months before you rent that. And as I said, look, 950 quid. If you're relying on that, 2 months passes before you get the next person in, because they've got to give 30 days to their existing landlord if they want to move to yours. So then, therefore, if that then does that then's £1,900 you've lost straight off the bottom line. Remember, if you have a void and you lose the rent for that month, it goes right to the bottom line. There's no cost. You don't get your costs back for running. It's right off the bottom line. So if you're only making £1,000 a year, like some landlords with lower value properties, if you're only making £1,000 a year out of each property after everything's paid for, then if you've got your rent at that level, you're out of business. If you lose 1 month. If you lose 2 months, you're in panic. You're having to pay that mortgage out your own pocket and any costs. That is not a responsible way to be a landlord, in all honesty. And you shouldn't be a landlord if that's the way you think. Because I don't want people like that being landlords or just don't think properly. Because I want people that will actually think about the tenant first before they actually think about themselves. And I know that sounds daft, and it's not a popular opinion for people to say as letting agents and as trying to get business. But the reality is, it's like it'll come back to haunt you. It will come back to haunt you, and it'll come back to haunt us as well, because of the numbers aren't right in the first place, and it doesn't make sense to do it like that. And that's why we're sit there and we tell people the truth. Whereas other people are like, "Oh, I need the business, so I'll just tell you can get this."
Just tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, because
another
if your tenant changes a couple of times a year, I'm getting the best part of £1,000 out of you.
Yeah, you're getting relet fees. Well, but another scary prospect, and I noticed, and there's a certain online agent who isn't based anywhere near here, and I know that they'd let the landlord dictate what the rental price is when they put it on the market. So they'll put it on the market. It's all done online. There's no face-to-face. There's no proper walk-round appraisal. The landlord says, "I want to achieve this," and they put it on the market at that.
They may as well just go. The landlord may as well cut them out though, and just go to open rent and do it themselves. They don't need that letting agent to do it then.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous, because then the landlord, without any knowledge of the local market and the area and things, is pushing these rental prices out that are just totally unrealistic. But anyway,
but they'll go to people and experts like you and get it for nothing.
Yeah, I know.
See what I just spoke about, previously? How disgraceful that is, expecting get expert advice or pay people for nothing, and then going and using somebody else's service.
And then just pitching yourself. Yeah.
They wouldn't like it done to them, so why should they do it to us or anybody else for that matter? Yeah, okay, rent increases. So we've got the Scottish rules on here for the rent increases. We've got the England and Wales rules. England and Wales have got this together a bit. They've thought this through, especially Section 21 and the fact that the no-fault eviction isn't getting taken away just now. Now, tenants groups are up in arms, but what they don't want to tell you is the fact that the court system can't cope with it. So Michael Gove said, we have to get the court system in place right, and we'll have to get it right before we can actually say Section 21 should be taken away, because many more people would go straight through the courts. Whereas Section 21, no fault eviction, means there's no thinking behind it. It's just the fact that it allows the landlord to end the tenancy, and then that's the end of it. But remember, we go back to saying, as with what we said a couple of weeks ago or during the week, is a landlord doesn't want to get rid of a tenant that's paying their rent, that's looking after the property, and is not being antisocial to their neighbours. They don't want to get rid of people like that.
Yeah.
So why on earth would they use no fault eviction? No fault eviction is only used in the case where it's very difficult for you to do, for example, you know what it's like, antisocial behaviour. To prove that, everybody knows it's going on, but the way the system works and the evidence you've got to gather over the next 3 months is so encumbrant. It's like, no, we know you're antisocial. The fact that you're trying to kick my head in the office tells me straight away that you're antisocial and you shouldn't be here, because you'll be doing it with your neighbours as well.
No, definitely.
And that's the type of antisocial I'm talking about. But you can't prove that. You can only just write it down in a bit of evidence, and then some idiot in a cupboard more or less sits and looks at it and goes, is that really true though, or are you just making that up because no one else says that? It's like the guy's trying to kick me in the head, or the kiddo for that matter. It's like, I think I know they're antisocial. So this is the reason why England and Wales have been more correct in what they're doing and their way forward, and thinking about it first about them. Patrick, if you're listening, this is why England and Wales are thinking about the knock-on effects of their legislation. Yeah. So just take that into account when you're putting rent controls in place, or if you are putting rent controls in. Anyway, Northern Ireland's got theirs on there as well, about some fixed-term tenancies, include rent reviews, clauses, and all the rest of it. They've gone this. Northern Ireland's at the other end of the spectrum. England's at the other end of the spectrum. We're caught in the middle, and we're moving towards the Northern Ireland model. Rent increases are always sensitive, but you can make them easier by offering more security to tenants. You know, this is what you want to keep. Perhaps offering freeze of the rent for 2 years. I don't mean free rent for 2 years. I mean just a freeze. We'll not pay up for 2 years. After the increase kicks in, so you could do that yourself voluntarily. In this market, I don't see any reason why a landlord would be doing that at this point in time, because it would be naive. They shouldn't restrict themselves to something so draconian, and could leave themselves wide open, because and let's be honest, inflation is 6.7%, wage increases are 7.8%. So it tells me straight away that inflation could have a chance of going up again, because wages are actually getting paid more. We're earning more salary than we are in salary increases than what inflation is right now, year on year. Unemployment's at still historically low, so therefore, there's pressure on everybody to offer higher salaries in order to attract talent towards the business. That's just the way of the world, because of restriction in supply, driven out of the economic policy potential of Brexit. See how all these things outside of your control can actually influence the decisions that go on. So you've got to make sure that you take decisions for things that you can control, but accept the things that you can't, but mitigate them in terms of your planning. Remember, you serve no one if you can't afford to keep your buy-to-let and need to sell it, because removing it from the rental market only really makes it harder for tenants overall to find a home, because we're not building any social. Well, I was away to say we're not building, and I did say that. It's like, because the Scottish government is not building enough social housing. Remember, it's not my responsibility to build social housing. It's the Scottish government. They take our taxes and build it, but they're not building it, are they? Their 110,000 houses has now gone out the window after 2 years, in 11 years. So they're not building their 10,000 social housing and affordable housing every year now. They've said that's unrealistic. It's like, tell me something I didn't know. It's like, again, you said it as a soundbite to get votes. That's all it is. So watch out for that. So
that was the carrot, yeah.
What else can we use then? What about you'd mentioned about using falling prices to expand. What do you mean by that, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, using the falling house prices and good price points to find property. I mean, have you ever heard, I'm going to get a wee bit philosophical, but have you ever heard of the poem that includes the lines, if you keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, yours is the earth and everything that's in it?
Kipling. Is it no Rudyard Kipling?
I think that's Kipling, yeah.
Yeah. No, Kipling, the cake manufacturer.
Is it
Rudyard Kipling doesn't make good cakes.
Is it Rudyard Kipling? It's not Richard.
It's something like that.
Rudyard Kipling. And he was writing about the trials of being a landlord, but it's sound advice for looking beyond the short-term ups and downs in favour of your long-term thinking. So the combination of falling house prices, rising rents, and some landlords selling up means that buying now comes with higher yields, reduced competition, and greater demand.
So let's just cover that quickly. Higher yield doesn't mean to say you're going to make more money.
No.
It just means you've got a higher return. However, you still have to work out what's the implications of the occupancy rate dropping, or the interest rates going up, or a rent freeze on your yield, because your yield that's sensitive in sensitive analysis, risk analysis, your yield could drop like a stone just with one change in the month. See how I'd explained it before, just with your rent so high. If you lose 1 month, it's going straight to the bottom line. If you're only making £1,000 a year in profit out of each property, which is what most landlords probably make right now, if not less, they're just hanging on for dear life. Then you're out of business straight away. So you've got to be careful of that. And you've got to have the right mix of the right KPIs, the key performance indicators.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, and also, I mean, rather than doing everything on your own and trying to struggle through things, you can team up and do things with friends and family and business associates and things to boost your buying power and share that workload and spread the work. Just obviously always do it with people that you have a lot of trust in and you are kind of on the same page and mindset. I think that's really important if you're teaming up with people and things.
Yeah. Just quickly, I'm trying to take into account some of the questions that are asked on TikTok without actually asking the question, if that makes sense. If you've got a question, I've not answered it yet, or I've not covered it in what I'm doing, I will come to it at the end of TikTok, because TikTok disappears for people. So it's not held as historic information. So I will answer your questions at the end, which will be in about 20 minutes. So if you can hang on for 20 minutes, for the people on TikTok, if I've not answered your questions and what we're doing here, I will answer them at the end. This is timeless content on the Facebook pages, on the Instagram pages. It stays there forever. It stays on YouTube as well. It stays on LinkedIn, but unfortunately, TikTok Live, it disappears and it's gone. So that's why I cover that at the end for everybody on TikTok.
It's also worth, Jim, exploring. I mean, speak to financial advisors and things like we say, but it's also worth exploring the equity that you have in your other properties, or if you own little or no mortgage, to use that funds as deposits to buy more buy-to-lets and build your portfolio. That's a good strategy as well. But speak to your financial advisor.
Yeah, I would say so. Yields haven't been this high for years, and I mean yields just. So buying up rather than selling up will probably give you immediate results as well as long-term security. But be aware that you've got land and build transaction tax, but you've got ADS. In Scotland it's 6%. In England, I think it's still 3%. So it's half the amount. So in other words, if you buy a property for 100,000, you're paying £6,000 in additional dwelling supplement tax by the Scottish government. So it's just basically throwing money in the fire. That's all it is.
I don't know about the 6%.
Yeah, and you can't deduct ADS. You can't deduct ADS against your profit straight away. So if you're putting £6,000 in, you can't deduct it against your income you're getting for that year. It goes on the capital value, just like your legal costs when you first bought it. And you can't deduct them either until you sell the house. So these are all things you've got to be aware of. I bet most people will be running to their accountant now and saying, wait a minute, I've maybe given you the wrong information. Because if you get nailed and they find out you've done something wrong in the first year, they can go back 6 years. And if they find something at year 5, they can go back another 6 years. So you can effectively have 11 years audit of your accounts in terms of your buy-to-let business. So you've got to be careful about what you're doing, and everything's got to be above board and in place for everything. This then gets on to being very financially creative. Landlords, you really can't control your buy-to-let deals, but you can explore ways to soften the blow of higher interest rates and make your rental home more profitable and sustainable overall. And some of these possible solutions are using your savings to pay down the outstanding balance to either reduce your monthly payments or refinance with a smaller loan-to-value ratio.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are like, whoa, can't I do that? But when you buy a portfolio, sometimes what happens is, if you're buying a portfolio on bridging loan, for example, so you bridge it in the beginning, but you've maybe got it at a low value for the first instance. So you buy it on a bridging, you do a couple of properties up, 2 or 3 of them in the portfolio because they're empty. You then sell them on the open market. You make a good profit on that. You take the money from there and put that in. So when you refinance it with the buy-to-let mortgage people, you've actually got a deposit created now for that reason. So that's one of the strategies you use to do that. So that's a way to use bridging and then transfer straight onto a mortgage. Now, wait a minute, my mortgage isn't set up. What happens if it doesn't? But you can actually get lenders which will actually give you that new mortgage almost on day one of what you're doing after bridging it. It's a weird thing. It's like it's almost equivalent to the back-to-back mortgages that we used to have. You know, where you would buy the property, you would sell the property on the same day, then you would sell it for a higher value. Therefore, you get the mortgage, you give cash back, and you would be infinite return. You'd have no money in the deal. So it's kind of similar to that, but they're not actually doing that. See how banks are actually looking at having creative ways to get around these loopholes that they had in the beginning. They supposedly closed up because of the credit crunch. But in instance, if you give them an opportunity by taking their bankers' bonuses cap off, which the government's doing, by the way, in the next month or this month in the budget, they're removing the bonus for the cap on bankers for their business. Therefore, it's going to leave them unlimited opportunities to earn income and make more money. So they're going to get very, very creative with what they're doing within the rules. It's human nature to find the easiest way of doing that in order to multiply their income. Why would you know? Everybody would do it, I suppose, to a degree.
Yeah, opportunities there then.
And for anybody there, don't give me your ethics thing. If somebody's waving another £1 million in front of you as a bonus,
right, of course.
Well, I'll let you and your morality think about that. Using your savings, lower loan to value, find a business partner. They do say a problem saved is problem halved, but sometimes it's a problem gained.
That's why I was saying pick the right people.
Yeah, pick the right people.
Trustworthy people, yeah.
Just like picking your partner, you pick the right partner that you marry, or you live the rest of your life with, your lifetime partner. You pick the right person, and that'll elevate you to huge heights. And just like that, picking the right partner to be in business is essential as well. I was talking to somebody that's very successful. It's got a huge restaurant chain, chip shops and all the rest of it, and buy-to-let portfolio, service accommodation, everything like that. The other day, and I said, what was the lessons you learned from your business as it went to the wall years and years ago? And he said, just do it myself. I didn't need these other people. I didn't need these other people to actually go into business with. I could have just got other people like them to work for me. Yeah. Okay. I probably learned that business years ago. But you definitely go into business with people that have got a skill that you don't have. That sort of thing. Or you've got people that are driven like you as well and are committed like you as well. That's the people that you should be choosing, just like a lifetime partner that you would have as well. So be careful what you're doing. You could easily say a problem shared is a problem halved, but it could be a problem gained. And it's also, it's all about getting into buy-to-let, right? Put more income aside in a high interest, easy access account is another one, as a financial buffer. This is what I talked about weathering the storm. When mortgage rates increase, then you could weather that storm. Look for other costs, like looking at other costs, like can you get better building insurance? Oh my God, I thought I could never get a better rate than what I got, and then I took my building insurance and took a third off it with a similar type of policy with another insurer. A third.
That was a good move.
That's thousands to me. That's thousands to me. But even a couple of £100 could keep the wolf from the door if anything happens, or it could be another improvement for anybody else. Landlord's contents as well. Some people do. I do contents, certain amount, just in case. Rent protection. Not really sure if that's entirely necessary. You might want to just get rid of it, because the way the government works is, anyway, the rent protection insurance is no good, because it's all geared up to benefit the insurer. Oh, surprise, surprise. All geared up to benefit the insurer, the rent protection insurance. Of course it is. Maintenance contracts, accountants' fees. You can find savings everywhere. Remember, it's compounding. It's not, if I could take £100 off of that, 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 I could do it 10 times, then I've saved £1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know anybody out there that would object to me giving another £1,000 in their hand. But I tell you what, if I took £1,000 out of your hand, you'd be raging. And that's effectively what some people are doing right now with the costs that you're ignoring and you're not reviewing. Now, I'm not saying go for the cheapest. I'm saying just review them, make sure you've got the right type of thing for what you've got and the right type of policy. That's probably the most important thing. The next one is really, are you actually better just selling up?
I mean, that is the question, and I get asked it a lot, and it's like, am I better just selling up? Is this where I am? So that is the question that'll be on a lot of people's mind, especially when they're facing all these increased costs. If you are that person that's at the point of renewing your fixed term mortgage and just think this is not viable for me anymore.
Yeah.
So many landlords, they have exited the buy to let, but we're not sure it's always the best move for them. Some instances it is, and I mean I'm not going to say it's not always the right choice, but costs like capital gains tax and selling fees and things, they all eat into your profits, while a few other investments are as stable as property, and we continually say that, Jim, and push that because, well, there isn't. However, if you decide to sell, there is things that you need to think about, and the most likely options are and the most straightforward solution is to sell your property to either maybe your tenant, and I've seen that in the past, or another investor. If you do need to sell, that is probably your easiest option, is if the tenants are in a position or you've got another investor that your letting agent maybe has looking to buy stuff.
There's plenty of private landlords looking to expand, and there's plenty of so-called investors looking to expand for the landlords and overall. But you've got to be extremely careful. I can't get past the fact that you're always better to have vacant possession and put the house on the market. And everybody goes, oh, but what about the estate agent's cost? It's like the estate agent's cost is minimal compared to the cost that you're just about to give away. Yeah. People get, because it's not their full-time business, like for example, like what I am. I'm a bigger landlord. Obviously, it's not exactly really full-time, but it takes up most of your time because of that, and you have to know your numbers because that's your business and your financial future. Just like a pension advisor would do the same. Because most landlords have just got one property, what these people are doing, because you see them all the time, they're advertising, and I'll call them out. I couldn't care less, whoever you are. You'll probably go, that's no fair, and all the rest of it. There's other things as well, but I'll just point this out, the subtleties of this. You see them all the time coming up on Facebook. We can buy your tenanted property and everything like that. Yeah. But what they're doing is effectively, if they want to buy your property, it will be 20% below market value. Because this is what they're doing. They're taking your property, they're putting it through a bridger at the 20%, then they're getting it revalued to flip it onto the buy-to-let mortgage at the 100% value, what they got it for in the first place. That's what they're doing. So they're using you as the deposit person, but it's not your money anymore. That's why you're better with vacant possession, because you want that. It's 20%. Now, I know you don't want to go through the hassle, but that's what they're preying on. The reason that you're biting at that advert because you're under stress at this point in time. Now, let me just explain to you, this will never be all the time that you'll be under this much stress. So sometimes waiting is the best answer. And I'll give you an example of that. Blank sheet of paper right now, okay? This is what happens on a daily basis with your mood swings. See that right there? Yeah. It going up and down. So that's what happens going up and down, and you've got stress. So there you go, up and down. That's over a day. So what happens over a week? So what happens over a week is that then equates to this, which it starts to smooth it out, and you've got bigger gaps of tolerance in there overall. In that, so that's what happens over a week. Yeah. So then this is what happens over a month in terms of what you're doing. See that straight line going up now? See how that's going up? Yeah. So straight line over a month, that's what happens over a month to your moods, because all these wee marginal differences up and downs actually smooth themselves out. But you're actually improving over the month anyway, and the way you go. So you're improving. And this is what happens over the long term. It's basically like an upside down hockey stick. So over the long term, that's what happens to your mood and your success. You go from the bottom and you go right to the top, right up like an upside down hockey stick. So everybody gets bogged down, and this is what they're preying on. You getting bogged down in the mire and in the day to day and in your emotions, and it's your emotions that will drive your decisions, and you don't want your emotions to drive your decisions in that case. And that's why I'm not a fan of selling with a tenant in situ. Albeit, I'm buying with tenants in situ, but that's a different strategy because the landlord needs this exit, whether they like it or not. They need it because of the rising interest rates are basically crucifying them, and they've no way of getting out of this. Because the loan to value is so high that they can't refinance any of the properties at all, so they're screwed. So I'm their only savior in this. to do that. So this is why it's important I'm not a big fan of selling with a tenant in situ for that reason. I'm a big fan of selling on open market. It does mean the tenant's displaced. Listen, I'll be honest. Your obligation is not to feel for your tenant, but look after you and your family financially. It's not to give away 20% of your property because you feel sorry for the tenant. The tenant chose to do that. The government's forced you into this corner. The economy's changed that you can't control. Therefore, you've got no choice but to do that for you. So it's your decision that you should be taking in your interests at this point in time. Selling on the open market, ask your tenants if they're allowed viewings. This is the point as well. You'll probably never sell a property on the open market with a tenant in situ, unless you tell the tenant you're actually looking, first of all, to sell to a landlord, which is what I do. And if it doesn't work out, then the tenant knows the writing's on the wall, unconsciously, because we just can't find a landlord to buy with you and the property. So they know what's coming. But the great thing is, it's not put them under any stress, because it's actually given them the lineup. And the next point is to actually, let's go looking for another property because we know the writing's on the wall. So it's not a full force, like, we're going to be evicting you, by the way, because we're selling the property. It's a smooth instance into that. Hey, if you get a landlord buying it, fair enough. If you're in that position, please come to me because I might buy with a tenant in situ because it's ready money. See what I mean? You've got to think to yourself, wait a minute, if Jim's going to buy it because it's ready money with the tenant in situ, am I making the right decision here? Think about that. If Jim's willing to buy it with a tenant in situ, what I've got, am I making the right decision? I'll tell you the answer is probably no, you're not making the right decision. But because of the emotional state you're in right now, you think it's all going to go away if this goes away as well. But it's short term. As I said, go back to the graph of emotions and success and how it works overall.
If you could find the right way to ride out the storm, it's just the whole thing that this too shall pass.
Absolutely. This too shall pass every single time. So you can think about doing that. But the least best option would be to give your tenants notice. At the point of you carrying out, you'll have to carry out, you'll have the right to carry out the viewings, but they don't need to give you access. So it could be really, really, really messy. If you're going to give them notice, to leave, you're probably just going to have to resign yourself to the fact and build into your numbers that they're actually not going to let you view the property with them in the property because it's their right to have peace and enjoyment. And there's no legislative argument at all in legislation that says you've got the right to do that. It's only a contractual civil agreement between you and the tenant when you sign the lease. And as I said, they could end up before leaving before you have an offer if that is the case. But more than likely, the tenants know the writing's on the wall if you do it the easier way, as I talked before. And because remember, you're not doing it because of that. You're doing it because you're desperately trying to find another landlord that will take it over. But if you can't find another landlord that you can take it over, then the tenant knows that they're, like, okay, we better get moving because we don't want to leave it to the point that he does do the eviction notice because of the situation. And I'll tell you, the majority of tenants I've had in the past that's had that has completely understood. And it's been easier for them and less stressful for them actually to try and sell with the tenant and sit with them in situ. But they know the writing's on the wall and they've just gone and found another property to let, and it's not been so stressful for them. So if you're considering selling your rental home in the Fife area, talk to us first. We might be able to help you boost your income, or we could have another landlord who'll buy the property straight away. Yeah, that's often the case. Again, I talked about the other day about weather and stuff, or I talked about yesterday, but you don't know what you don't know, and hopefully, I think what I've just demonstrated to you is we probably know a bit more than what you do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you are, I mean, Maisie says there she's in the mind, it's on my mind to sell up, but only due to what's coming out of Holyrood. And a lot of people will be in the same mindset.
Can I be honest? I shouldn't really say this. Thank you.
Then,
thank you, Patrick Harvey.
Yeah.
What have I just said that for?
Hopefully what we've
What have
covered
I
today.
said that for? I'll tell you, I'm not going to say it publicly there, so I'm saying thank you, Patrick Harvey, but I'll say it when we're at our network meeting, our property chat group on the 1st of November.
Next Wednesday.
But you need to actually register for that to come along, because we just need to know numbers, because we didn't want it to be crazy.
Yeah.
But I will tell you in private what I mean by that, why I would be thanking Patrick Harvey for what he's about to do. I tell you what, opportunity is coming and it's on the horizon. That he's an absolute fool by what he's about to do and what he's about to open the floodgates to. But I won't talk about this publicly. So yeah, anybody, Patrick Harvey, you could show this to him. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I mean, like Maisie and a lot of people watching, are you weighing up your future as a landlord? I mean, there's a lot to think about right now. If you're having a sounding board of all your thoughts and concerns, to kind of try and help yourself find some clarity, then please come to us, speak to us. My direct number and email are in the blog here attached to the post. Feel free to come to me if you want to discuss anything or elaborate more on what we spoke about today. I'd be more than happy to speak to anyone.
Yeah, my final thoughts on this, just a quick one about some of the comments that were mentioned. No other industry is barred from implementing a price increase during a contract. It's true though, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, average 3 bedrooms at £850 to £900. I talked to somebody the other day and I said, you should have let me negotiate your rent for you with your landlord, because they weren't their landlord wasn't part of our group. And I said to her, you should have let me negotiate your rent with your landlord, because I could have got you £200 a month off your rent with the landlord that you were about to get. And as a result, they're paying £800 instead of £600 a month. But I could have swung that for them and told them what to say to the landlord to get it for £600 a month. It's as easy as that. And most landlords go, I wouldn't have let that get past me. It's like, you'd be surprised.
Yeah,
You'd be surprised how we could swing this. Remember, that's why I'm that successful in buy to let, I suppose, and because of that. So social housing as well, actually. The people being offered social housing is literally a luck of the draw. But what I object to right now about social housing is they're cherry picking. They're not even looking at the list. They're just cherry picking.
That definitely does happen.
Of course it does. I give somebody a brand new refurbished property to move into at a very affordable rent, and it's a fraction of their salary, and yet 2 months later they get a brand new social housing property. 2 months later, when there's people on the street still struggling to get decent accommodation, and they're giving it to somebody who's got something that they can afford already, and they've not got any reason at all to be moving, because there's nothing. There's no mental health issues with that person. There's no disability issues with that person. There's no income problems with that person. And it's like, and then they get allocated a council house or a social housing from a social housing provider. The system is geared towards cherry picking. And it's been going on for years. If you'll not remember this, Richard, but I remember in the stories in the East Fife Mail all the time, or local press, every single time where councillors, there was 3 different types of application forms for social housing. There was a white one, there was a blue one, there was a red one. And the red ones was if you knew anybody in the council. The blue one was if you knew a councillor, and the white one was if you didn't know anybody. And guess who got priority? Red. Council. People you know in the council already. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's all it comes down to. And that system still works like that right now. So that's the sort of things you've got to watch out for. That's probably my parting comments on that. I'm going to cover with the TikTok brigade.
No, I think hopefully that the points that we've raised about how to kind of tackle a situation where you're facing these hikes is something that will help you. And like I say, come to me direct. My contact details are in there. Just quickly before we finish up this morning, Jim, we'll do a rundown. Just a week ahead, you mentioned about obviously a property chat thing. You're going to be doing the market update Sunday. We've got the Wealth Creation Show on Monday at 12:30, where we're doing.
What we're talking about?
Slowing down to speed up.
Yeah. Slow down to speed up. Slowing down could make you more money. Did you realise that? And increase your wealth by slowing down. What? That just goes against the grain. Surely it's working a lot faster and harder will make me more money. No, it doesn't. Slowing down to speed up is the answer to everything. We're going to talk about that in Wealth Creation Show. What else have we got?
And on Wednesday, you mentioned that we are doing, we're starting up our property chats for Fife. If you want to come along, my email's in the post above. Email me direct. It's totally free. We're not doing any upsells or anything. It's just to kind of bring people together. In Fife, you do need to register, so I know for numbers. So
Yeah.
I could send you the link to do that.
I'll tell you, the property chart's the format. The property chart is really like I quite fancy a night out. So if anybody wants to come along, and if you're registering and it's like it starts at 6, it's like, if you're not there at 6, it doesn't mean say you can't turn up at 7. It's literally just turning up to the pub and meeting your mates. And then it just so happens we've all got knowledge and expertise in buy-to-let and property investment. That's what the property charts are all about. It's nothing else other than that. Do that. I used to do this years ago when I had Fife Landlords. When we founded Fife Landlords Association in 1999, December 1999. It was 20 big landlords got together. I got them all together. We formulated a wee group of people, and then 50 or 60 people used to turn up every single month, and we just used to have a chat about things. Now and again, we would just decide between ourselves. We'd say maybe we should get the rent assessor in to talk to him about what he does and how he does it, so we could work out how to maximise our rents. Maybe we should get the housing benefit people in order to have a wee chat with them, to build a relationship with them. And all these people were delighted to be invited in to have a wee chat. Now, it wasn't a formal, this is what you're doing and this is how you do it. It wasn't a lecture like the current formats that everybody's got. It's like, this is just people having a chat casually and telling each other, helping each other on their journey, and possibly even cooperating and working together.
Yeah.
Now that does sound like what everybody else is doing, but I wouldn't break a successful pattern, because I think the most important point of going to a lot of these events is actually the networking bit.
The networking and the chatting in between and at the end and the beginning, yeah.
And you don't get enough time to do that, so that's what property charts is born on the back of. Plus the fact, Kevin, I'll take my hat off to Kevin Wright. Kevin actually gave me that inspiration to do this again after all these years, because I thought, yeah, that format does work. I like that. Pop in, pop out whenever you want. Yeah. It's no, I've got to stay till 9 o'clock or I've got to stay till 8 o'clock. It's like, that's me got what I've needed to get. I'm off home. That's it. And I'll probably get a free lunch at it as well, which I'm looking forward to at the place that we're going to. Well, maybe we can maybe pick different venues each month, so we can get, based on the fact that I've never tried their food before. Maybe we should go there. That's an idea.
But yeah, anybody that's interested in that, please just email me direct or give me a call, and I've got the details for that.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, good. Bye-bye for now.
Right, thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody, for joining in, and I'll see you all there. Bye.